Coming up in this week's episode, we're talking Saints, relegation, and the 2 remaining Champions League places, plus all the usual features. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to a new episode of View from the Sideline podcast. It's Chris here, and Liam is here as always. Hello, Liam.
Hello, Chris. How are you doing, mate?
Yep, not too bad. I mean, football-wise, it went down the pan for me about 3 months ago, so yeah. I've not really had that much to look forward to on a football front. But
how
a bit different for you, though.
Yeah, I mean, how does it feel, mid-table mediocrity? I'm probably a bit more used to it than you are.
I mean, it's less stressful, I must admit. I mean, after losing about 3 or 4 games in a row, I completely zoned out, and losing just became the norm. So when we were losing, I wasn't getting angry. But
it gets in after a while, doesn't it?
Yeah. Saying that, last time this happened to us, we ended up winning the league next season. But I would love nothing more than for Pochettino to come in and win the league in his first season at Chelsea after however many years he had at Tottenham. And the thing that would make my year. That would, knowing the fact that he's been at Chelsea for 1 year, he wins a trophy, and Tottenham still haven't won anything. So
I think the only way that could go any better is if you sign Harry Kane in the summer as well. I mean,
well,
just imagine.
I mean, I think any chances of that happening are gone now, because I think without Champions League football, I don't think he's going to
probably
come to us. So,
but he does like Pochettino, doesn't he?
Yes, yeah, he does. But still not sure on that. Still not sure. But anyway, a lot's happened since we last did the podcast. One team has actually already been relegated, and 2 teams have already got Champions League football. So we're going to talk a lot around about sort of relegation and who's going to get those 3rd and 4th places. But we will start with Southampton. I think this has been coming for a while, and I think if you look back over the last couple of seasons, I think the decline has been there, where they've sold key players but not replaced them, and you can't rely on James Ward-Prowse to score you a penalty or a free kick every weekend, because it's just not going to happen. The fact that Chelsea have lost to Southampton twice this season baffles me slightly, but I think we're both agreed that it's been a long time coming, I think, for Southampton. And for them, obviously last time they got relegated, it did turn into a bit of a downward spiral, because they ended up in League One, didn't they? So
in League One with points deducted as well.
So obviously a great scenario for Football Manager that was, by the way.
Was, yeah.
Southampton in League One and about minus 15 points, and then easily winning the league. So, but yeah, I just don't think that they have enough quality in that side. You look at the squad on paper, and to me, it just looks like an average Championship side. I mean, there's no one there that really is going to step up and score loads of goals in the Premier League, and they can't defend.
No.
When they've got the ball in midfield, they've got no one to put it through to. I mean, they're relying on Theo Walcott at the moment to create and try and score chances. So
yeah, it's like you say, they've been on a downward spiral, I think, for the last few years, and we always sort of praised them.
Yeah.
They were getting into Europe, they were buying players from relatively unknown teams, relatively unknown players, turning them into world-class players, selling them for a huge profit. And like we said a few times before, it's fine doing that, but you have to have at least your academy or some other way of backing that up. I think we spoke probably the last time we recorded this podcast about either Brighton or Brentford. They're doing what Southampton used to do now, but by the looks of it, they're both bringing in fresh talent as well as buying it from those foreign leagues. So my example would be Brighton at the moment, buying in Mitoma, who's obviously been great this year. They've done it with Pascal Gross as well, who's looked, at home in the Premier League since he came, 3-4 years ago. But they've got people like Ferguson coming through the academy, who's been really good. Enciso scored a couple of goals recently, who's been really good. They've got good depth, and I just think Southampton at the moment are in a place where I think they're trying to build for the future. I don't know whether they expected to get relegated at the start of the season, but based on the transfers that they made, it was very much a look to the future transfer window. I think they have planned, or they've planned for this situation for quite a while. I think they'll probably be okay. I don't think they'll go down to League One like they did last time they were down there. I don't think they'll struggle financially or anything like that. I think they've got enough assets to sell. People like Che Adams will probably go. Ward-Prowse will probably go. But they have got a decent group of 20, 21-year-olds that might be able to steady them in the Championship. I don't think they'll come straight back up unless they can keep hold of people like Adams and Ward-Prowse, which I don't think they will. But I don't think they're going to drop as far as they did before. I'm hoping that they've learnt from that last time. Like you say, they've struggled, I think, for depth in midfield for quite a while. Defensively, they've looked leaky. They've been very reliant on one particular player to get them out of trouble. It's not a recipe for success, as Villa found out with Grealish. We were doing exactly the same, relying on him to get us out of trouble, and we ended up going down to the Championship, staying there for a few years. I think Southampton are going to go the same way. I think they'll be down there for a little while. I think they need to consolidate next season, mid-table in the Championship, then look to progress, go for the playoffs, and then go for promotion. So I think 2 or 3 years they'll be down there. But I don't think it'll be too long before they're back. I think they've got, the academy itself is so highly thought of. I think that's an attraction for younger players. If they can get that rolling again, if they can get a decent year of graduates coming through that academy, I think they'll be back. I think they'll be fine. But like I said to you just before we started recording, I actually got to work at St Mary's today. We had a team day at work there, and just chatting to a few of the staff members there, they weren't in a particularly happy mood. It obviously costs quite a lot when you get relegated. I know you get the parachute payments, but generally quite a few of them are worried about their jobs, and it is the people that work in catering, it is the people that work on the desk at reception and things like that. They suffer just as much as any of the players do, so it was quite a somber feeling around there when I was there this morning. But yeah, hopefully for them they'll be back soon. But it's been a bit of poor management, I think, for the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, they bought obviously Nathan Jones in sort of first quarter of the season, and it just didn't work out for him.
Do you feel like they had enough of a chance? I don't think yet.
No, I think they were a bit too quick to get him in. If I'm honest, I don't know. It was either going to be a stroke of genius of him, or it was going to fall flat and not work. And it did fall flat, and they ended up with another manager. But if you look sort of in the period where they needed to step up, sort of in the last 11 games, they got 3 points from a possible 33. So, I mean, it really does sizzle. And 2 of those draws, 2 of the points were away to Arsenal and away to Man United. So, not really too sure what's happened, but they just haven't won enough games. And even the games that they've won, they've only won by a goal. So
they haven't beaten the teams around them, have they? I think.
No, I mean that the Forest game the other day, I think, was the one that completely wrote them off from any sort of escape when they lost 4-3 to Forest. I think that was the key game that they needed to win. Because I think if they would have won that, I think they would have been a lot more up for the remaining fixtures, knowing that they still had a chance. But I think it was all over after that.
Yeah.
It's not many. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I wouldn't say teams down there are on form at the moment, but every team down there seems to be picking up a win or a draw.
Yeah.
Every sort of 3 or 4 games now. They made their changes in manager at the right time, probably hired better than Southampton have done. And the gap, because it was so close, wasn't it? Even I think when our last podcast was, there was only about 3 or 4 points separating 6 or 7 teams down there.
Yeah.
And it's just taken this last sort of 8-9 games really, and that gap has just grown and grown and grown, where teams down the bottom are all picking up points against each other, and Southampton just obviously, like you say, they've got a draw at Arsenal, draw at Man United, but they've just not picked up any points against the other teams around them, and that's been quite costly.
So yeah, we'll move on now. We'll actually move on to the other 2 teams that could potentially be relegated. So basically got 4 teams now in those positions from 16th to 19th. West Ham very much safe now in 15th, just due to goal difference, I would say. So you've got Forest, Everton, Leeds and Leicester fighting it out to stay for survival. Obviously Leicester, they lost yesterday, didn't they? 3-0 to Liverpool, which hasn't helped their goal difference one bit. But it's very close, isn't it? It's very, very tight down there. And any 2 of those 4 teams, really, you look on paper, they could go down. But for me, I think Leicester, looking at the 2 games that they've got left, they've got Newcastle away and then West Ham at home on the last day of the season. And I think that's 2 very, very tricky ties. And then you look at Everton, they've got Wolves and Bournemouth. You'd say that they probably should be able to get something out of one of those games. Forest, however, I've got Arsenal and Palace. They're the other team that I'm predicting that are going to go down now. I'm going to say Leicester and Forest, and I'm going to say Leeds are going to, by the skin of their teeth, going to remain up. They've got West Ham and Tottenham to play, but I think what I saw from them at the weekend against Newcastle, they sort of found another gear, Leeds, and they actually looked half decent when they were actually going forward. And to be fair, I thought they were probably unlucky not to actually win the game. I mean, they missed the penalty as well. Obviously, Firpo got sent off 91st minute, but that wasn't really going to change anything. And obviously Newcastle, very, very good side. But obviously it was 2 penalties that they scored. So from a Leeds point of view, I think there's more positives to take out of that game, and I think that will give them momentum to go through and get at least a win. I think they just need a win and possibly a draw against Tottenham to stay up. I can't see Forest winning either of their games. I can see Everton picking up points, but again, I can see Leicester getting a point out of the last 2 games, but that won't be enough for them. So I think it'll be Forest and Leicester to go down, which is a shame really, because Forest, they've given it a fair old whack this season, and attacking wise they've been pretty good, but it's just the amount they've conceded at the same time it's not weighed against each other very well. So I mean, from their point of view, they overhauled the squad. Pretty much a full 25-man new squad, and it looks like it's not going to get them to stay up. And now they're going to be stuck with a lot of players on a lot of money, on probably 2-3 year contracts still as well. But saying that, I think if they were to go down, I think that them and Leicester have got a great chance of coming straight back up. But I agree with you what you said, Southampton earlier. The squad depth isn't there for them, and I don't think they can rely on the younger players next season. So yeah,
interesting. I mean, I've seen a couple of Leeds games this season. I've seen a couple of Leeds games over the last few months, and they've shown fight in pretty much every game that I've seen them. Apart from, I think, probably Fulham. They didn't really show much in that game when they lost to Fulham. So they have shown that they're willing to battle. They have shown that they're up for it. So I could see Leeds getting a couple of points, I think, from their remaining games. But I'm not all doom and gloom for Forest. I think Arsenal, by the time it comes to Arsenal playing Forest, I think Man City will be champions. So, I'm assuming Man City are in the earlier group of games. So, Forest and Arsenal, I think, kick off is 5:30, and I'm assuming Man City are playing at 3:00. But either way, the title's gone now, I think, for Arsenal. So they're not going to finish anywhere other than second, I don't think, in my opinion. I could see Forest getting something out of that game. I don't know whether a win is a bit too far out of the question, but I could certainly see a draw. I think Leicester are going to go down. I kind of wanted them to stay up in the end a little bit because of Dean Smith. I do love Dino, but they've just not, I don't know, they've not shown the fight that Leeds have, for example, and they've not shown the fight that Everton, I think, have over the last couple of games. So I just think it's going to be between Everton and Leeds, and it's two massive teams to go down. I don't know. It's tough to call. I think Forest will be fine. I think Forest will get at least 3 points from their last two games. I think they'll win at least one of them. If they don't beat Arsenal, I think they're going to go into the final game against Palace, who, again, nothing to play for, really. You know, they're safe. They're not going to get in Europe. I could see, if it's all on the line, I could see Forest getting a win there. It's just going to be between Everton and Leeds for me. I think Leicester are down. I think I'm going to go with Leeds. I just think, although they've shown the fight and the willing to scrap for every point, they've just not had the luck, to be fair. And this is coming from someone who doesn't particularly like Leeds, but they've just not had the luck. Like a missed penalty at the weekend to win them the game. You know, that goes in and looking a lot safer. But that kind of thing has happened, I think, for the last sort of 3 or 4 games. They've either missed a hatful of chances, or they've had someone sent off, or any number of things has gone against them. And I just can't see it turning around in the last 2 games enough for them. So I think the bottom 3 as they are now, I'm going to go with the bottom 3 at this moment going down, I think. I think Everton will have enough, because I think Sean Dyche will get them so well drilled. If we get to the end of the season and Everton end the season with 2 0-0 draws to survive, they'll be delighted. And I think that could, in theory, happen. So
we're both agreed on Leicester then.
Both agreed on Leicester. And I think, I know sort of say, I think Leicester will have a chance of going back up. Yes, I think they will. But I think there's going to be a few players that will want to leave. I have a feeling Vardy will probably stay, but maybe 46 games at his age is going to be a bit too much for him to play every week.
But they're different to Southampton though. The players that they've got, I think, if they can keep the majority of them, I think that they will manage to go straight back up. But like you said, there'll be a few players in there that probably won't want to make that drop.
A lot of them have joined at a young age, and I think have sort of integrated into the team. So like Dewsbury Hall, Justin, players like that. Like they've been playing Everson in goal the last few weeks. Yeah. Players like that, I think, probably will stay. I think they'll give them a year in the Championship. Maybe if they don't go up first time around, then other teams might come sniffing around for them.
Do you think maybe one of the failings was that they didn't sign another goalkeeper
I think
after losing Kasper Schmeichel?
Yeah, I questioned it, and I think their form at the start of the season, Ward was at fault for a lot of goals, but I think he did make up for it. I just don't know if it was a confidence thing, but he did get better. He had some really good performances actually after, I'd say, the first sort of 6 or 7 games. Yeah, I think I was surprised they didn't sign another goalkeeper, but I think for them the big thing was Tielemans wanted to leave. I don't know whether it was that no one met the valuation for Leicester. It was very clear that he didn't want to be there. And rather than just let him go and then replace him, they kind of stuck around, forced him to stay maybe when he didn't want to stay. You know, he had won them the FA Cup the year before. So that I think he's a big player for them, isn't he? And when you're one of your main players, probably your best player, certainly your best midfielder, doesn't want to be there, doesn't say much for the rest of the people in the team. It's a big personality probably to get it wrong. I'm not surprised they're near the bottom. I was surprised they didn't add defenders in, I think. Probably their letdown for last season was not having a world-class centre-back to replace Fofana.
Yeah.
They got a lot of money for Fofana and it didn't seem to go anywhere. They bought in Price. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. But he wasn't a like-for-like replacement, and they just seem to have fallen into the trap of we'll sell someone who is world-class and we'll buy someone in to just fill a hole rather than to actually replace them properly. And I think that's where they've been struggling for the last couple of years. So, yeah, a lot of money went on the new training ground, things like that, and I appreciate that, but they needed to invest more into the squad, and it just didn't happen, did it?
No. Right, we'll move up the table now to the Champions League spots. So, top 4. So we already know that Manchester City and Arsenal are going to be in the Champions League next season, but the race for 3rd and 4th is getting a lot closer. I mean, a couple of weeks ago it looked almost certain that Newcastle and Man United would both be there, but Liverpool on this absolutely crazy run at the moment. Where the last game they actually lost was against Man City on the 1st of April. And they've only dropped 1 point since, 2 points since then. That was against Chelsea the game after. So, Liam, do you think Newcastle and Man United can hold out, or do you think Liverpool can get into that top 4? Bearing in mind Newcastle and Man United both have a game in hand. And funny enough, Chelsea got to play both of them as well.
Yeah, you're having a big say in the European race, but in the way that you'd hoped. Looking at United's last 3 games, they are very winnable. Bournemouth away and then 2 home games to end the season against Chelsea and Fulham. Obviously, normally Man United and Chelsea could go either way. But based on the form this season, you'd have to fancy United. But anything can happen in that game because you obviously hate each other. It's one of those. And then finally, ending the season at home to Fulham, you'd fancy them to win. Newcastle's fixtures, I think, are a bit tougher. Brighton, been really good this season. On their day, capable of beating anyone. Also on their day, capable of losing 5-1 to Everton. So, depends what Brighton team turn up, really. Leicester we've spoken about. They'll be scrapping for everything at the bottom, I think, but I'd fancy Newcastle to win that, and then obviously ending away at Chelsea. Again, depends what kind of Chelsea turn up, I think. Liverpool, I think, will win their remaining 2 games. Tough for me to say that because one of them is against Villa, but we never do well at Anfield. Or we haven't done for the last few years, and then obviously ending the season at Southampton. So I think Liverpool will get 6 points. I could see Newcastle slipping out of it, to be honest. I kind of don't want them to because they've deserved to be where they are this season, and I think they've been better than Liverpool. But their struggle is they've drawn too many games, too many winnable games. If you want to be qualifying for the Champions League, that you've got to win. including the game against Leeds at the weekend. I just don't know whether it would be a step too far. But having said that, if Newcastle finish 5th this season, it's still an incredible result for, considering where they were last season. But I mean, only losing 5 games to this point is just insane. I never thought they'd be this high up, to be fair. So, yeah, I think if anyone is going to drop out, it'll be Newcastle. I still just about fancy them to shade it because of their game in hand. But if they lose against Brighton, that game in hand is wiped out and there's only 1 point difference. So Liverpool have been in this position before, whereas a lot of the Newcastle players hasn't. I kind of fancy Liverpool if Newcastle don't get a result in their next game. But yeah, it's all to play for up there, really.
Yeah, I personally agree with you. I think if one of the two of them does slip out, I think it would be Newcastle. I agree. I don't think Liverpool are going to lose. I think they'll get 6 points from those 2 games. It's tricky because, like you said, Chelsea got a big hand in this. And at the moment, you never really know what sort of Chelsea team are going to be there. I'd much rather play Chelsea on the last game of the season, purely on the basis that they'll probably put out a young squad, especially when they're not having to play for anything. It's tough. It is tough. Are we counting Brighton out?
I am counting Brighton out. They've had a great year, but I think I would probably fancy them at the minute to stay 6th because of 2 games in hand over the teams around them. So I think Europa League for them. But what a season for them, to be honest, and fair play to them.
Oh, I mean, they've got games in hand, but you are only a point behind them. Are we counting you out?
We are.
Unfortunately, we have to count you out.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking that maybe there might be a late surge, but we lost a couple of games in a row. So, But I'm still delighted. 8th or above is incredible.
Yeah, I agree. I think Man United, I can't see them losing any of their last 3 games. I think they'll either get 7 or 9 points from those last 3 games. It's Newcastle. Brighton is very tricky at the moment. Like you said, you never really know what you're going to get with them, and Leicester are going to be scrapping for everything they can. And to be the last 2 games I've seen of Newcastle, they haven't actually been that great. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least. But I think I would go with how it is right now. I think is how it's going to stay. Man United may get 3rd, Newcastle 4th, but I think Newcastle have gone all this way this season, and if not for them to get in that top 4, I think they'll be massively gutted. But at the same time, quite pleased that they're actually getting European football. So it's probably more of a win-win for Newcastle if they were to finish 5th rather than 3rd, just pure on the basis of the league position they're in, and they'll get Europe as well. So and for them, you think them commercially as well.
Yeah.
The people that have taken them over, what they've been in there for 18 months now. I mean, Eddie Howe has already proven, I think a lot of people said, it's the money that's getting him this far, but they've actually played decent football this season. And to be fair, I don't think a lot of people would have thought they'd get in that top 4. But it's going to attract higher profile players if they finish in that top 4.
Yeah.
Players that 18 months ago they could only dream of getting.
Yeah. And if you look at what they've got at the moment, the basis to build on that team with Botman obviously doing well in defence, and Guimaraes has been great, ever since Newcastle bought him. I don't think he's really put foot wrong. Isak's coming back to fitness as well. And even sort of the squad players are chipping in. Almiron has obviously had a really good season. He went on that really good run. Nick Pope, obviously a good goalkeeper as well. I think he probably should be, ahead of Pickford in the England running, along with Ramsdale. So they've got a really good spine of the team to build on. I think it will just be adding those few quality players in the summer. Yeah. They'll mount a real challenge.
I think Guimaraes and Joe Linton in the middle. I think They've done particularly well, I think, for Newcastle this season. Joel Linton, he's just like a completely different player, isn't he? When you think about when they signed him for 40 odd million as a striker.
Yeah.
And who knew that he was one of the best midfielders in the Premier League?
Yeah.
That's crazy. But yeah, well that's it for part 1, and we'll be back in part 2 with some Wonders of White, a quiz, and a Who Am I? Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this week's episode. Liam, it's time for some Wonders of White.
Excellent.
I'll be completely honest with you. I've gone against the grain and added a 5th one this week.
Oh, spoilers. Well, to be fair, backlog of months.
Yeah. I mean, all these stats have been in my head for 2 months. I've got to release them out. So, first one is Arsenal have conceded 23 goals at home in the Premier League this season. They've only conceded more in the 1920 season, and that was 24.
Wow.
So likely to equal or worse than that record.
Didn't expect a negative Arsenal stat.
Yeah, sorry, that's just me being me. Jealous. How did this one get in there? Chelsea have now won the Women's FA Cup in 4 of the last 6 seasons, including the last 3 in a row.
That was the 5th one you added in, was it?
No, that wasn't the 5th one. The 5th one is maybe a Chelsea. I can't remember what the 5th one is now. Oh, this one's an Aston Villa one, look.
Excellent.
So since Unai Emery's first game in charge of Aston Villa in November 2022, his side have caught opponents offside 92 times, which is 27 more than any other team in the Premier League.
Most of that was Spurs at the weekend. I don't know whether you saw Spurs at the weekend, but they were caught offside a lot against us. Well, I think we basically camped on the halfway line, and Kane and Son just didn't realise. It was constant offside.
He's got you well drilled about that. And Manchester United have now won 20 Premier League games this season and 38 in all competitions, which is the most in a single campaign since 2010-11 season, which they won 39. So they could still better that record.
Nice.
Yeah, so that would be their best ever record as well. And the last one I wanted to add was this beauty I saw earlier, is that Chelsea are the only team not to give away a penalty in the Premier League this season.
Wow.
There we go.
It's got to end at some point.
Hop of something there, look. Yeah, see? Right.
Not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, all doom and gloom, see. Right, so this week's quiz, it's a manager in and out related quiz.
Nice.
But with a slight twist, is that you'll be guessing against 2 different numbers or things that I'm going to give you. One is right, one is wrong, and it's just a bit of fun.
I'll just keep remembering that.
And you'll get the gist of the quiz from the first question.
Okay, cool.
You ready?
I'm ready.
So, Ed Sheeran's 2014 hit Thinking Out Loud spent 378 days inside the UK's top 40 singles chart. But is that longer than the reign of Scott Parker had at Bournemouth? So which was longer, Ed Sheeran's Thinking Out Loud or Scott Parker? Who lasted the longest?
Was it, so it was 378 days?
Yes.
I was going to say 378 weeks.
Whose reign was longer?
I'm going to say Scott Parker just.
You're right. Scott Parker lasted 428 days. So he was a full 50 days ahead of Ed Sheeran.
Wow.
You can kind of see where this is going.
I like this.
So, Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard have constantly been compared on the pitch. But did Gerrard last longer in the dugout at Aston Villa than Lampard did at Everton? So whose reign was longer?
I thought you were going to say than Lampard did at Chelsea. That's quite tough. So Gerrard was pretty much a year on the dot. So I think Gerrard lasted longer because I don't think Lampard made it to a year. I'm going to go to Steven Gerrard.
That's actually wrong.
Oh,
So Gerrard's reign was 343 days, whereas Lampard's was 357 days.
so close.
2 weeks in it.
Wow.
Okay, so next one. Patrick Vieira was sacked by Crystal Palace in March. As a player, he was a midfield maestro for Arsenal and France. But was the gap between his first and last trophy for the French national team longer than his time at Palace?
So the gap between his first
and last trophy for France, was it
last.
longer than the time that he spent at Crystal Palace?
Yes, it was. Surely.
It was longer, yes. So Vieira helped France to win the 1998 World Cup, and then in 2000 they won the European Championships, which is 721 days. That's 100 more days than his reign at Crystal Palace.
I'm very confused by that.
So, yeah, so basically the gap between him winning the World Cup, which was his first trophy for France in 1998, and then his last trophy for France was in the year 2000
I see.
at the European Championship. So you actually got it right though. So
I got it right. That is the main thing.
So we did speak about this guy earlier. So Strictly Come Dancing lasted 85 days from the first dance to the final. Is that longer or shorter than the time span of Nathan Jones's reign in charge of Southampton?
Oh, did Strictly Come Dancing last longer than Nathan?
So was Strictly Come Dancing on longer, or was Nathan Jones's reign in charge of Southampton longer?
I'm going to say Nathan Jones just.
It literally is just as well, yeah. So as in the question, it says Strictly Come Dancing was on for 85 days. Nathan Jones was in charge for 94 days.
Oh, God.
Next one. So Antonio Conte was sacked as the manager of Tottenham in March. In his first spell in England, he lifted the Premier League and the FA Cup with Chelsea. But where did he spend longer? At Spurs or at Chelsea?
Ooh. That's quite a tough one. I am going to say he spent longer at Chelsea.
He did. It was a long time as well. So he was in charge of Tottenham for 509 days, and he was at Chelsea for 831 days. So almost a year longer.
Nice. Okay. I didn't embarrass himself there. You just wanted to get that in to say that he'd won stuff at Chelsea and he didn't win anything.
That's exactly what that's in there. So tennis legend Roger Federer was world number 1 for an incredible 1,659 days. Is that longer or shorter than Brendan Rodgers' time in charge of Leicester City? So Roger Federer was world number 1 for 1,659 days, but is that longer or shorter than Brendan Rodgers' time at Leicester?
360. Just doing a little bit of quick maths in my head.
It's incredible that he was world number 1 for that many days.
Because that is basically like 4 years consistently. Over 4 years consistently, I think. So I'm going to go the greatest tennis player that ever lived. Roger Federer was longer than
He was by 190 days. So Brendan Rodgers was at Leicester for 1,496 days. We've got a Leeds one next. So Jesse Marsch's last job before Leeds was at Leipzig in the Bundesliga. The American's tenure with the German club wasn't exactly lengthy, but was it longer than the time at Leeds?
I have no idea. I didn't even know that was where they got him from.
Yeah.
I am going to say it was longer at Leeds.
It was longer at Leeds, yes. So he was in charge at Leipzig for 220 days, and he was just shy of a year at Leeds for 343 days.
That was a guess.
So this is the last one, the next one. So Ralph Hasenhüttl was in charge of Southampton for 4 years. Does the ex-Saints boss boast a longer tenure at the top than former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, managed at number 10? So, was Ralph Hasenhüttl's time in charge of Southampton longer or shorter than Mr. Johnson's reign at number 10?
Feels like Johnson was there for ages, but I'm going to go with Ralph was longer.
Correct. Hasenhüttl was 1,433 days, and Boris Johnson was 1,139. So they'll give or take just nearly a year, about 300 days more.
I didn't do too badly there. I'm quite pleased with that.
Boris Johnson never lost 9-0.
No, definitely not twice. So,
I think you only actually got one wrong.
I was
got that one right, that one right, that one. I think the only one you got wrong was the Steven Gerrard one. Was the actual Aston Villa question.
Standard. I'm quite pleased with that. I am. Yeah, there was a couple of guesses in there.
And if you hadn't realised, I have ripped that from the BBC website.
I didn't realise that. No.
That came from the BBC website. But I was fascinated with the actual quiz itself when I was doing it online.
Nice.
And I can't say that I think I got less than you. I think I got 6. I think when I did it, so you did pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, well done.
Nice. Do you fancy a Who Am I to end this?
Go on then.
It's been sat on my desktop for, over 2 months now, so I might as well get rid of this page. How am I going to do this? Right, so this player has retired.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you any years, but I'm going to read through, and I'm going to give you all of his teams.
All right, even the last one, yeah?
Even the last one, because I don't really give too much away, to be fair. So I'm going to give you all of his teams, but he has retired. So, started his career at Schalke, then moved to Werder Bremen, then on to Real Madrid, and then Arsenal, Fenerbahce, and finally Istanbul Başakşehir. I should have left that off because I can't pronounce it, but that is his final club.
I know this one already.
You know this one?
Yeah, well, I think so. Just putting the nationality and the teams and the move from Arsenal to Turkey. So he's definitely German.
Yes.
And his name is Mesut Ozil.
Correct. It is indeed Mesut Ozil. Yeah. And the reason that I used him for Who Am I was because the last time we were meant to record, he retired about 2 days beforehand.
Oh, right, yeah. No, it was I couldn't have told you where he was before Real Madrid, but it was the Real Madrid to Arsenal it was Galatasaray, wasn't it? Or Fenerbahce.
Yeah. So he retired from professional football on the 22nd of March, 2023, which I think it might have actually been the day that we were going to record.
You didn't even know you'd retired.
He had recurrent injuries, apparently. So, he no longer plays. He only played 4 games for Istanbul.
He was so good at Arsenal, wasn't he?
He was great.
So good, but he just let his ego got the better of him, didn't it, towards the end of his time there, and I think he thought that he was better than the players that they already had, and I think his attitude wasn't great, was it?
Yeah, I mean, his record for Arsenal is pretty good. 33 goals in 184 games, but obviously it's more about assists.
I think if he had left Arsenal amicably, I think he might have got a transfer to another top team.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like he was sort of pushing sort of like that sort of retirement age, was he? Because he must have been in Turkey for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so he
So
moved in, I think, early 2021. So I think he would have been 30 at the time. He's 34 now.
yeah,
So yeah, maybe
someone
30.
could have still got a season out of him, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Strange.
So yeah, but it's his actual record was pretty good. His international record was pretty good as well, to be fair. But yeah, it's just he was one of those sort of enigmatic players. He was a bit of a confidence player, wasn't he? If he was either
Yeah,
he was either completely invisible in a game or he'd absolutely run it. And I think a lot of the Arsenal fans, I think, just got fed up with him being a bit invisible in certain games. But yeah, 23 goals in 92 games for Germany. Not a bad record, really, is it? To be honest. 105 games for Real Madrid, and only 19 league goals. But like I say, it was more about assists, wasn't he, than he was about scoring.
yeah.
Never got into double figures for a season in the league. But
Do you not?
no, only ever managed 9 league goals. That's his most. That was in La Liga just before he joined Arsenal. And
That's
then,
who I think Odegaard is quite like. I think the way that they play, I think, is both very, very similar.
yeah, he
Just,
was a good player back in the day.
just a quick one that Luton have won tonight. They've won 2-0.
They'll be in the
So they're
playoff.
in the playoff final.
Interesting.
So
And Inter Milan have also made Champions League final.
I really want them to win. I don't know why.
You fancy Inter Milan to win?
I'd want them to win, but I can't see anyone beating the one of the other two teams.
Yeah.
I think if you look back on the whole season, I think Man City and Real Madrid have been the best two teams in Europe. So, well, in the Champions League, that is. I mean, Real Madrid have dipped off a bit in the league, haven't they? In
Yeah.
La Liga, but I think in the Champions League, I think those two have been by far the best. In fact, I think last time, since we last spoke, Real Madrid knocked Chelsea out of the Champions League. So,
Yes, they did.
um, frustrating that was, because I thought the second leg, I don't know if you saw any of it, so many chances to
Yeah.
get back into it. But yeah, never mind. Anything else?
No, nothing else from me.
Right, so we will see you soon.